This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome one and all to the X-Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host, I'm your guide, as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I have been calling for the past 25 years, the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Radio X throughout Europe, and our growing family of broadcast providers, as well as satellite distributors around the world. If you'd like to give us a call, our toll-free number is 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Now, before I get to my guest this hour, I would just like one very simple question to have the opportunity of asking each and every one of you around the world. How would you like to be part of UFO history? I'm dead serious. And to show you how serious I am, all you need to do is go to www.cubesatfordisclosure.com. That's www.cubesatfordisclosure.com. And that's how simple it is. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is NANCI DANISON. And NANCI is the author of Answers from the Afterlife. And what NANCI is telling us that everything we know about life and death is wrong. Wow, and this is NANCI's fourth book that expands on the information she obtained during an after-death experience in 1994. NANCI brings the credibility of a trial lawyer trained to evaluate evidence to her account of the answers to our most pressing questions. First of all, NANCI, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the X-Zone, and tell us about your near-death experience and how it has played such a major part in your life.
Well, my near-death experience was an actual death experience, and I lived in the afterlife for a period of time, and it was my time to die. Near the end of the experience, most of which was composed of remembering or reobtaining the knowledge that I had before coming into this body of NANCI. But near the end of that experience, when I was awakening to the knowledge that I am, in fact, Source, the entity that we call God, I kept saying to myself, well, somebody should go back and tell those people, the truth about life and death and the afterlife, and that it's not scary like our religions tell us it is. And next thing I know, I'm coming back into my body. I didn't actually mean that I had to be the one to come back and tell people, but that's how it worked out. I died as a result of anaphylactic shock and low blood sugar during a radiological procedure right before breast cancer surgery. And apparently I was allergic to the local anesthetic, but nobody knew that at the time. And so the radiologist and radiology technician left me alone while they went to process some films and do whatever else they were doing. And I left my body, and I was standing in front of it, and I looked back at it, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know you could do that. And next I went through a black void, but at the end of that void I saw this little tiny pinprint of light. And I said to myself, oh, I know what that is. I'm supposed to go into the light. And as soon as I had that thought, I was in the light. Now, this sounds pretty much like your standard near-death experience.
All right, what we're going to do, Nancy, is we're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here because I do have to take a break. Exonation, Nancy Denison is our special guest of this hour. And Nancy, what is the website people can look towards to get a copy of your book?
Backwardsbooks.com.
See it all.
B-A-C-K, I can't even spell.
B-A-C-K-W-A-R-D.
BOOKS, all one word, .com.
See, it sounds more credible coming from the author than if I say it all the time. Nancy,
she goofs it up.
Nancy, stand by. Great having you with us. And Exonation, Nancy Denison and I will be back on the other side of this short break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget to find out more about Nancy. Visit her website, backwardsbooks.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, and you're listening to us on the X-Zone Broadcast Network.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Exonation, welcome back. Nancy Dennison is our very special guest this hour. www.backwardsbooks.com. And Nancy, before we went to the break, we had a little bit of a cliffhanger. And if you'd like to continue the story, I know I would love to hear it, and the rest of our listening audience would as well.
While I was in the light, I felt the unconditional love and the bliss and the joy that other near-death experiencers have reported on. Then I went into a different phase where just tons and tons of information was downloaded into my mind. It was just flying at me faster than I could comprehend it. Most of that information was about how we are not really humans, and that everything I believed before I started having this experience was wrong is too strong a word. It was based on human perspective. And the human perspective is that we are completely separate from God, that we are cast into this place where God doles out suffering to us, requires us to earn our way to heaven by following inconsistent rules, and then judges us by an unknown standard before deciding whether we go to heaven or hell. And I learned in the afterlife none of that is true. I also learned that the personality that we think of as ourselves, the person that we hold dear, our identity, our true self, our memories, our thoughts, our loves, everything about us that we hold sacred, belongs to the soul, not the body. The human animal has its own personality and character traits and thoughts and beliefs, which are different from ours. And that's what accounts for that feeling that sometimes we have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, the conflicting pulls that we get in our emotional makeup and the conflicting decision points that we have and information that we use to make our decisions. And the soul part isn't part of the human at all. What it is, or what we are, is literally characters in Source's mind. And I use the word source instead of God because God, people hear that and they think of an old man with a long beard who acts just like a human. The supreme entity that I encountered was energy. It was just pure energy. It had personality, emotions, character traits, intelligence, everything you have previously attributed to a supreme being. That's what Source is. That's what I'm talking about. And I learned that we are characters in Source's mind, just like when we dream at night, we have these little environments that we create and we have characters in there. We're just like that. And just like our dream characters are part of our mind, we are part of Source's mind. We are the dreamies, for lack of a better word. And that through us, Source can experience the physical world.
So you know what this reminds me of, Nancy? It reminds me of what it says in the book of Genesis in the Bible. And God said, let us create man in our likeness, in our image. And this is just confirming what you are saying, or you are confirming what the Bible says, that we basically are God. Not in the egotistical way. Just like I am part of my father, I am part of my mother. That makes me.
Actually, it's more literal than that. The only reason we believe we are separate from God is because Source has the ability to cast amnesia over parts of its mind. Think of like a person who has multiple personality disorder, and each of the personalities, comes out and acts and lives and interacts with the world, from time to time. But the personalities don't know about one another. And they all think they exist in the real world, and they think that they're, the primary person in the body, and
Right.
they think that they're living their life. That's kind of what we are. We are all just parts of like multiple personalities within Source, and we all think that we're individual and living a human life and having all these adventures only because of Source's ability to have self-amnesia, kind of like the multiple personality person.
So is it like the Borg that we used to see on Star Trek, where we're all part...
I love that show.
Pardon?
I love the Borg.
Yeah.
I love that show, and I love the Borg.
So is that basically what we're saying, that we are part of a collective, that we are all connected at one level or another?
Yes. I think, from my perspective, the difference between the reality of who we are as parts of Source and the Borg is that the Borg were all controlled by, I guess, this evil-looking woman who is the queen of the Borg. We are not controlled by Source. We are all individually Source with its own with its consciousness, its personality, its character traits, and its ability to act independent. So we craft our own individual lives through the process of manifesting. And that was another big topic I got a lot of information about in the afterlife, that we, being Source, literally manifest into physical reality what humans consider to be the universe, solid matter, the plants and the trees and the rocks and the earth itself.
You know, so many people have told me that we are spiritual beings experiencing a physical body, or existing in a physical body. I forget how that goes, but I've heard that so many times.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We're the spiritual part, not the body part. But we have a sacred duty to take care of our human hosts and do the best that we can for them. But we're constantly at battle with human personality and character traits. Another big part of manifesting is there's a lot of talk out there about the law of attraction and how we attract things to ourselves. And if we just look at the right pictures and think the right way and have the right emotions, we can pull out of thin air, the new car that we want and the money that we want. And that is, again, not wrong, but it's the way a human would look at the spiritual phenomenon of manifesting. We don't draw anything to us. We create it from scratch, moment by moment. And that's kind of a scary thing to think of, because it puts all the responsibility of everything that happens in your life in your own hands. We do it in concert with one another. We create, and I'm sure you've heard this before, we create agreements before we enter into an incarnation with other spirits to do certain things with and for them. And we manifest those things with them.
As a trial lawyer, how would you present this case to a jury without any evidence?
We are taught as trial lawyers that eyewitness testimony is not credible because when people are excited or under a lot of emotional stress, they misperceive things.
Right.
And that really does apply, I think, to when you're witnessing a crime or an accident or a tragedy of some type, something that really stirs up your emotions. And I think that's also true of the human body. We only capture about 15% of what we hear, and even less of that we may understand. But near-death experiencers are out of the body. They're free of those limitations and those restrictions and those impacts on credibility. Near-death experiencers who go into the afterlife and who actually get information there in the afterlife, I believe, are completely credible eyewitnesses. And that's the evidence that they have. And some of us, I know some of what I saw while I was out of body, other people have confirmed. That's exactly what was happening on Earth. And there are other near-death experiencers who report, seeing things in the hospital and resuscitation efforts and all that are confirmed by other people. So that's a form of evidence. But frankly, the best evidence, I think, is in your heart, what resonates.
Right, I agree.
When you hear it, does it ring true? When you hear it, does it make you feel loved and special and part of our Creator? Or does it make you feel afraid?
But what happens in a case where the experiencer, if they were going to have an experience, doesn't have any belief in any philosophical, religious organization or entity?
The same thing that happens to everybody when they die. Our religions and our spiritual beliefs impact us in the early stages of the crossing over, like before we go into the light.
Right.
And then early, we'll interpret things. Most near-death experiencers have a very brief encounter with the afterlife. 99% of them do, and they still think like humans. They still think they've got a body, and they still think the same way they did while they were on Earth in the afterlife. But if you go further into the afterlife, like I did, that all wears off, and you start getting this information downloaded into your mind. I call it universal knowledge.
Right.
And once you get universal knowledge, you realize that your human beliefs were mostly myth and superstition and kernels of truth that have been a little bit misunderstood. But now you have the truth, and you remember it. When you're in the afterlife and you're hearing these things, you go, oh yeah, I knew that before I went into this body. How could I ever have forgotten it? And the answer is that we have amnesia when we're incarnated.
Would the knowledge that you are given, would that be coming from what people call the Akashic Records?
I don't know what that term means, but I think it might be the same as what I'm calling universal knowledge. Everything that is known or could ever be known, it's all of Source's knowledge, is what I call it. And a lot of what Source's knowledge is what we're gathering through our incarnations. Like Source knows intellectually what it's like to be a rock or a tree or a human or a pig or an alien, but doesn't know what it feels like to live it. And so through us, split personality characters, it can actually enter into physical matter, all of which is imagined, of course, but and have what are real seeming experiences and feel what it's like. So it's the difference between reading a book about being a cowboy and actually living out on the range and herding cattle. And that's why we were created, was to get that kind of experiential information for our Creator. And all that we gather, all of our experiences, every bit of the sensory data, every thought, everything is in universal knowledge. So if that's what the Akashic Records are, then that's what we're talking about.
All right, Nancy, please stand by. You and I have to take our break. We'll be right back. Exonation, Nancy Denison is our very special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Nancy and how you can get a copy of Answers from the Afterlife, visit www.backwardsbooks.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, it's very simple, studio@xzoneradiotv.com. Nancy and I return talking about this fascinating book that she has written entitled Answers from the Afterlife. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge, breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Exonation Nancy Dennison is our special guest this hour. Answers from the Afterlife is her book, and it reveals that everything we know about life and death is wrong. And if you'd like to get more information about Nancy, or if you'd like to get your very own copy of this seller book, www.backwardsbooks.com. Nancy, you were saying before we went to the break that everything that we experience, everything we do is fed to the collective. I would imagine we could call it that.
Yes, the collective being is what I was calling it while I was in
All
the
right,
afterlife.
collective being. Now, if the collective being has been around since day one, and if there is only one collective being that is collecting all this data from all these planets, these solar systems, these universes, are we being used by the collective being to actually be his his tentacles?
Well, first, I'd like to say there's no his to God or source.
All right.
It has no gender. And I think that's a valid point, a valid perspective from the human perspective, where we've been indoctrinated to believe that we are separate from Source. But we're not. We're just parts of Source's own consciousness. So when you have dreams, do you feel like you're using your dream characters to have this imaginary adventure while you're asleep?
Well, I don't have imaginary characters. The people that in my dreams are real people during the day, so the experience may be fictitious, may be, in fact it is, because I'm not actually having the experience, right? But if I was to have the ability to feel and live all these other lives that I have access to, I wonder why I would why I would need to get all this information. What is the main cause? What is the main purpose?
I'm sorry, my phone's ringing.
It's okay.
I didn't expect that.
Don't worry about it. As long as it's not for me, we're okay.
I'm not even sure it's for me. I'm sorry, that interrupted my train of thought.
All right, what I was saying is, if, here we have a deity who, everything we do is channeled back to the collective, the creator. I'm wondering why we as humans, or spirits in a human body, need to go through everything we go through in life, all the ups and downs, the misery, the hurt, the pain, if this information is already known.
That's actually one of the questions I answer in my book, Answers from the Afterlife, which is in a question and answer format, and it's composed of all the questions that my readers have sent me over the years in response to having read my books or viewed my videos on YouTube. Think of a grandmother or grandfather with all these wonderful little grandchildren. They're all start out as infants, and they have their first time that they roll over, and the first time they have their first step and their first word. And as grandparents, you've seen it all before. But seeing a grandchild, each individual grandchild that you love for who they are, going through routine and mundane things, still fills you with love. And so for Source, even though it has had experiences bazillions of times through bazillions of characters in its mind, each experience, while it might appear the same to humans, is actually unique because the person having it is unique, and the way they react to it and respond to it and feel about it is unique. And we can't see that when we're inside these human bodies.
Sure.
We can't see how other people feel. So when we think it's all been done before and said before and should be boring to Source, it really isn't.
But what do you think the ultimate objective of Source collecting all this information is?
Just to know. That's it, just to know. One of Source's prime characteristics is curiosity. And just like, when we're little babies, we're curious about everything, and we like to play with our fingers and toes and bite everything, stick it in our mouth. Source is, my experience of Source while I was in the afterlife is that it's a lot like that. It is so insanely curious that it wants to know everything, and it wants to explore all its abilities, all of its intellect, all of its imagination, creativity. So it's the same spark that makes writers write and TV producers create and actors act. It's the craft of it all, the experience of it all.
Why is it then that the afterlife experience or the near-death experience really wasn't talked about until the advent of the internet and the advent of the New Age movement?
Well, I'm not sure that's actually true. The early research into near-death experiences was done by physicians. First one being Dr. Raymond Moody, and I think he did his work in the 80s, maybe. And I know Dr. Kenneth Ring, who collected a lot of near-death experiences, did his work in the 1980s.
But the Internet's been around since the 70s.
But this information wasn't on the Internet. These researchers were writing books.
I see.
Because that's the way medical researchers communicate is through books and papers. So I think the early research done in this area was done by physicians, and it was all in writing. And I think most of near-death experience accounts are written now, and I know there are a couple of websites that collect them, maybe several websites that collect them, but a lot of the near-death experiences on those websites are just extremely brief. The ones that are in-depth, those people write books.
So
I did.
how can people who are fascinated and are interested in afterlife experiences and near-death experiences, how do they know, with all the information that is out there, what is real and what has been fictionalized?
Well, when it comes to things on the Internet, I don't know how you make that determination. That's one of the values of buying books, at least books that are published by a publisher, because then you've had some vetting done of the person. You've had, somebody looking at the book and thinking or making the judgment that the person's credible and what they're saying is well stated,
right,
and that it's worth investing money in to publish. And I think the near-death experiencer websites, there's one, NDERF, NDERF.org, and those are NDEs collected by Dr. Jeffrey Long, who has himself written a book.
Yeah,
and then his wife, Jody Long, who's a lawyer.
Right.
And they do a real good job of vetting people.
Well, Jeffrey and Jody have both been on the show. Raymond Moody's been on the show, PMH Atwater.
They're all cool people, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And, they, to me, are the cornerstones, the very foundation of this, and I call it a movement because more and more people are moving towards it. And as I said to you during a break, that more and more people are being vindicated because of the work that they have done and the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm just telling you something from the heart.
Well, and I wish I could say that I was vindicated when I was in the afterlife, but I wasn't. Before I died, I had 12 years of Catholic school education, 6 years of Methodist college, and 3 years of law school, which some would say would be the opposite of religious training. But I was a Christian, and I believed everything that I had been taught in my Catholic religion, and I was astonished to learn in the afterlife that just about everything I believed before I died was wrong. And I was offended. I felt like, why couldn't they just tell me the truth? Why didn't my religious leaders just tell me the truth? It's so simple and it's beautiful and it's not scary. And in response to that kind of righteous anger, I was given the answers to all my questions. Who am I? Who is God? What's the purpose of life? Why am I on earth? Where's heaven? Where's hell? And what's the one true religion? And I've got the answers to all those in my books. But I was also shown this documentary of Earth history, from its creation to its demise, and all of mankind's development along the way, and how religion developed among humans. And so I was able to see not only how we got to the point we're at now and why we believe the way that we believe, but I also saw that Source has given us millions of messengers over the years who are telling us the truth, but they're not the important people of life. They're not the kings or the presidents or the self-styled gurus. They're not religious leaders. They're ordinary people. And I think because of that, you get back to this question you asked before about, what evidence do you have?
Right.
And I think that a lot of people, they are attracted to gurus and religious leaders and people who claim to know the truth more so than those who actually do know the truth, who aren't self-promoters like housewives and musicians, I had this afterlife experience where I saw every bit of everything that had ever been written by humans. And I saw that there were so many poets and TV people and musicians who had given us the message that we are all one, but it didn't jump out at me when I, was familiar with their works. Like I remember there's a Nickelback song that I saw, in this afterlife experience that, has the message we're all one in it. But when I used to sing along with the radio, I didn't recognize that. I also saw, when I saw this documentary of humanity and how religion developed, I saw that Gene Roddenberry was one of the messengers.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? And now when I have all the old Star Trek, series on tape, and I go through and I watch and I see the pieces of universal knowledge that I learned in the afterlife that are embedded right in those TV shows. But nobody watched it for that. They watched it for the entertainment value. So the information has been given to us. It's just human nature is to be attracted to the scary and the horrific and the horrifying.
Sensationalism.
Pardon?
Sensationalism.
Yes. If it bleeds, it leads.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Nancy, you and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Great talking to you. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about Nancy, if you'd like to read her book. And Christmas is just around the corner, Exonation. This would make a wonderful Christmas gift. The name of the book, once again, is Answers from the Afterlife, and the website is www.backwardsbooks.com. And Nancy and I will be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. Nancy Denison is my special guest this hour. Her website is www.backwardsbooks.com. And if you'd like to get a copy of Answers from the Afterlife, it's available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and online stores, as well as brick-and-mortar stores everywhere. And I'd like to thank Ryan McCormick for helping make this interview possible tonight. We were talking before about perception and how, we believe everything that religion has taught us, and it's basically brainwashed us. I believe it has. And you know what? It's just not religion that is to blame for that. Because when you look at history, modern day history, we still have school books and are teaching the children that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, when we know for a fact it was the Vikings. And we know, based on recent research by archaeologists, that it may even have surpassed the time when the Vikings were here. So if we can still manipulate the truth when it comes to history, there is no doubt that we are and have and will continue to manipulate the truth about religion.
I think that's right.
So where do you see all this work that you've done, that you're doing, all the information that the source has been collecting, is going to collect, and will be collecting? Is this going to make a better world? Are we going to be able to evolve into a species that can live together, that can understand each other, that can put the religious connotations aside? Or are, once the experiment is over, poof, that's it?
Well, I was watching the documentary of Earth history. I also saw the future. And unfortunately, since I didn't think I was coming back here, I don't remember that much of it. But I did see that, like many other near-death experiencers have seen in the past, that there will come a time when Earth will be more peaceful, and the pendulum will swing back from the craziness we have going on now and the violence back to a more agrarian, more community-centered, and a more peaceful life with far fewer people. What I saw was that floods and natural disasters and diseases that once were harmless mutated into diseases that now kill people. The combination of all those events killed off most of the humans. Now, will humans ever evolve into a better place or a better world? No. Humans are violent, self-centered animals. But we souls inside, we parts of Source that are inside these human bodies, will come to a point where we are better able to control our hosts. And we can do that now. It's just most people don't believe they can. You know, how many times have you heard somebody say, well, that's just who I am?
Yeah, many times.
Well, that's not true. You know, we all can train our bodies, just like parents train you to go to the body. We can train our bodies to act better than they're naturally inclined to act.
Right.
And we can take control. And when we feel like saying something hateful or doing something violent, we can, take a breath and say, no, I know that's what my body wants to do, but I'm not going to do it. And a lot of people don't realize they could do that.
Is there a way, in your opinion, that having been on the other side and having returned, is there a way that we in this existence can actually communicate with those on the other side without going to a medium and all the hocus pocus?
Oh, absolutely.
How?
In fact, and I've been dying to tell you, even though it didn't fit into our conversation, that aliens are real, and I remember living alien lives. I got all my memories about them back while I was in the afterlife. But in terms of communicating with those who have passed on, the most surefire way is directly. People in the afterlife do not communicate through mediums or psychics. That's what I learned while I was there, that our love bonds are forever. So someone who has loved you in human life still loves you when they're in the afterlife, and if they want to communicate with you, they'll go directly to you. And they can do it in any number of ways, visual appearances, auditory, just leaving things for you to find. But I find that the most effective way and the easiest and simplest way that everybody can communicate with those in the afterlife is through dreams. And it takes some practice. Before you go to bed at night, say, Mom or Dad or whoever's passed on that you want to communicate with, come to me in my dreams. And after a period of time doing that, I was able to establish a routine communication with my parents who predeceased me. Well, actually, my mother died shortly after I did in 1994, but then she died permanently before me because I'm still here, obviously. Anyway, and the people that we love will appear in our dreams, and you can tell that that's what's going on, that they're there to communicate with us, because usually the dream will be like just about you and them standing around talking, or you and them sitting somewhere talking. It's
Right.
not an action dream. Or if it's an action dream, they will suddenly appear where they don't belong, and they'll start talking to you. And unfortunately, the way that the human mind works and the way that the amnesia of incarnation works, we won't remember most of what they said when we wake up. But you can get to the point where you can remember, oh yeah, my mom came to me last night. I don't remember what she said, but I feel better about about myself now.
So, I have to ask you now. Aliens are real.
Oh yes.
Okay, let's go. You said that you lived a life as an alien. What can you recall?
Many.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So basically, are we recycled?
Actually, that might be a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
We characters within Source's mind, we personalities incarnate as many times as we want, anywhere in the universe, into anything at all. It's completely our choice, and we do it over and over and over and over again until we've learned and experienced whatever we want.
Wow.
And so when I was in the afterlife, I had a life review, like, a few near-death experiences I've reported, where, everything that happened in Nancy's life, kind of reran like it was actually kind of like scenes floating on the outside of a bubble film, and I was in the center of the bubble. But since I had just left Nancy's life, and I'd been there, done that, I wasn't that interested in seeing it again. What I got fascinated with was I was remembering all my other physical lifetimes. I was plants and rocks and fish and creatures on all kinds of planets and nebulas and stars, and I've lived inside every imaginable kind of physical matter. And after I came back from the afterlife, I can remember now one other physical lifetime that I lived as a creature that looked kind of like Worf.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like Worf with the ridges and stuff, but without the human face. More of a scaly-like face with eyes that had lids that go sideways and up and down, and orange irises. And I was a shuttle pilot, and my job was to fly goods from space dock out to the ships that were hovering around the space dock and just deliver them. And the reason I remember that life so vividly is because when I was taking flying lessons as Nancy, every single time I came in for a landing, I wanted to just drop down level and come in straight and level from the bottom of the runway, just like I was doing in space, with my space shuttle.
Wow.
And my flight instructor kept screaming at me, you're going to kill us one of these days doing that. But that was my habit that just came to me from having done it so many times in another life.
So it's no wonder that people, I would imagine, carry luggage sometimes from one lifetime to the next, and that so many things can make sense to so many people that they just can't explain at the time. For example, the prodigies, the deja vu and so on.
Oh yeah.
It's all part of the master plan.
Deja vu is actually what the sense that we get when we live through a life event that we saw as a preview before we entered into this life. And when we're deciding whether and when and to whom to incarnate, we see a preview of the lives that we're considering. And when we actually live through what we saw as a preview, although the body doesn't recognize it, we as soul do, and we get that sensation of deja vu.
Nancy, as much as I'd love to talk to you for another hour, we have to say so long for tonight. But I would love to bring you back on so we can further discuss this fascinating way that you have described afterlife to us. pre-life to us, and that whatever we thought we knew about when we were dead was wrong. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you the best of luck. And Exonation, if you'd like to get a copy of Answers from the Afterlife, you can go to Nancy's website, backwardsbooks.com, and it is also available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and fine bookstores, online and offline, everywhere. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.